Now, what was Wollstonecraft's philosophy of universal human rights like? Her Rights of Woman is one of the few political or philosophical texts by a woman that is generally recognized as a classic of Western civilization. Her recent canonization in the fields of English literature and political theory, however liminal, is partly due to her own deep reading in these traditions. The Rights of Woman engaged the dramatic poetry of William Shakespeare and John Milton, alongside the novels of Samuel Richardson and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It built on the dissenting Christian moral theology of Richard Price, the empirical epistemologies of John Locke and David Hume, the educational philosophies of Locke, Rousseau, Talleyrand, Perigord, and Catherine Macaulay, as well as Scottish Enlightenment theories of economic and political development. Fusing together these varied intellectual influences in her Rights of Woman, Wollstonecraft imbued the debates of the French Revolution with a visionary universalistic perspective on the rights of humans. Wollstonecraft's grounding in Enlightenment era debates. I'll read this, tell you this sentence again. Actually, Wollstonecraft fused all these varied intellectual influences in her book of Vindication, and she had imbued the debates on the French Revolution with a visionary, universalistic perspective on the rights of human beings. Now, Wollstonecraft's grounding in Enlightenment-era debates about rights led her to develop one of the most original contributions to political theory in her time, the idea that women's rights are a kind of human rights. What we often take for granted, the idea of universal human rights, undifferentiated by sex, was truly a radical idea in 1792 when her book was published. The most radical and influential aspect of Wollstonecraft's arguments for the rights of women was their appeal to the humanity of women. Women's status as human beings was the grounding or justification for their entitlement to equal civil and political rights alongside men in modern republican governments. Wollstonecraft often referred to women as the degraded, oppressed, and politically marginalized half of the human species. With such rhetorical locutions, she reminded her audience of the artificial and arbitrary quality of women's social inequality with men. She also underscored the sexist commonalities as members of the same species, the moral desert of women to be recognized and respected as human beings. Wollstonecraft's appeal to human nature as a common ground for human rights claims was the theme of late 18th century abolitionist discourse. Her 1790 treatise, A Vindication of the Rights of Man has made such an argument for the right of chattel slaves to their liberation from an abominable bondage. As she had declared, quote, "But is it not consonant with justice, with the common principles of humanity, not to mention Christianity, to abolish this abominable mischief," unquote. Like other British abolitionists, such as her theological mentor, the Reverend Richard Price, Wollstonecraft understood her critique of chattel slavery as a logical application of the principles of Christianity. In particular, the idea that men and women were created as moral and rational equals in the image of God. She concluded her first political treatise with a resounding appeal to the, quote, "the immutable attributes of God," unquote, as the metaphysical foundation for her conception of human equality and the human rights she derived from it.